just be the evolution of the sport. I mean, every now and again you get these coaches that roll through that you just want to go, gosh, just get with the time, guy. If your coach is teaching your 6-year-old a headlock before anything, there's a problem. Look, we're going to take the 1 or the 16. You decide. Welcome to the show. And we're live. Listeners, the 2023 NCAA champion, Vito. What's going on, my man? How are you?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Good. Hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. It means the world. We're trying to kind of grow the channel and grow, just the sport in general. So people like you coming and doing these things, it really helps us out. So Vito, I try not to do too many introductions because I'll absolutely slaughter it. So I'm going to let you have at it. Give yourself a little introduction, name, who you are, where you're from, just for people that may not know, and we'll go from there.
For sure. So my name is Vito Arujau. My real name is Vitaly Arujau. If you see Vitaly or Vito, that's all the same person. Um, I grew up on Long Island in New York. Originally, I'm from Belarus. I was born there. My family's a first generation immigrant. I wrestle at Cornell right now. So I wrestle for Cornell University. I wrestle for Team USA. This year, I was the national champion at the NCAA tournament. Um, for the past 2 years, I was the runner-up for our world team trial. So I was the Olympic alternate in 2020, 2021. I was the world alternate last year. Wrestled in four. I was a four-time New York State champion, uh, three-time All-American now for Cornell, and yeah, I think that's a pretty.
Good. So where at from Long Island are you?
So Syosset up on the North Shore.
Okay. Yeah, so I got family, actually my grandpa, my great grandpa, and then aunts and uncles that actually grew up in Amityville. So,
Oh, cool,
yeah, so
cool.
we used to go out to Amityville in the summer times and go out there and hang out, and eat good pizza and have good
Yeah,
donuts and all sorts of stuff. I tell you, we're from Kansas, and so you can't get good pizza like out there here. It doesn't happen.
no,
Doesn't
I know.
happen.
No. It is crazy for sure.
Right?
Pizza and bagels. I don't know what they do down
Yeah.
there. It's just good.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's the water or something, man. I tell you, I don't know what it is, but
oh no, I don't know.
so let's talk about, your mindset going into the NCAAs this year. You got Fix in the semis, you're going to have RBY probably in the finals. What kind of mindset do you go in with that saying, all right, I got two of, arguably the best wrestlers, in the country in my bracket. What thought process are you going through, the week of, the day of, before the match, stuff like that?
Um, you know, once I got there, after I finished my quarters match, where I wrestled uh, Sam Latona, you know, there was a moment where I was just like, oh, like now I have like real tough competition. Like this is the fun stuff. This is where I can wrestle to, my heart's content, where I can, really put on display like the techniques and stuff that I have at my disposal. And was looking forward to the challenge. I knew they were high level opponents. I knew what they were capable of. Um, and yeah, there was just it's different, right? Wrestling those high level guys because it's much more of you know an art, like a game of strategy versus someone who isn't as good. There's just like less, I don't know, less interest from me, where I kind of have to do it. And it's weird, right? Because if I wrestle someone who's probably not great, now I almost feel this pressure to have to win by a lot of points, right? Whereas in those better matches against better opponents, I'm much more free and able to like focus on just hitting really clean techniques and just kind of putting on a show. So
Right. It seems like
I,
you kind of have to just be thinking about every little thing, that you're doing because one little mistake and, you're giving up a takedown, or you're getting returned back to the mat or whatever the case may be,
yeah,
so. Yeah, and I mean, you talk about, beating, not so great kids by a lot of points. So what you majored Fix, right? And the semis was 10-2?
See, but that's different. That's different because I didn't go out there with the intent to do that. I
Okay.
was just I was just kind of in the zone, kind of like going out there as a tough competitor and just kind of doing the best that I could.
Right.
And those were just the results that I got. But but yeah, when I wrestle like someone who's not great, like in those first couple rounds, there's a lot of pressure for your good guys on the team to like get bonus points for the team and stuff. And I just much prefer just wrestling higher level opponents.
Right. Yeah, get the best wrestling you can get, don't worry about the team score, that type of stuff. We talk to a lot of our guys a lot about that, where it's one of those deals where, yes, we want the team to do great, but the individual wins, those are key, and especially when you're wrestling high level guys. But then I feel like, in the semis and especially in the finals, I felt like you just kind of got into this rhythm, and it was like you're not breaking this focus. It was just one after another after another after another, and it looked really good. In my opinion, the re-attack style of wrestling, that RBY throws out a lot of people. You almost did that to him better than he's done it all year long in the finals, in my opinion. I felt like, I'm watching you wrestle and I'm like, man, he looks a lot like he does, like RBY usually does. And it was really cool to see. I'm glad that you got to overcome that. I've watched you wrestle for a while, and I mean, all of those guys, we get to see them, and I love Cornell because we've got a family friend and a guy from Dodge City here that went to Cornell. His name's Andy Teben. So we're always rooting for those guys, to
Shit.
to work as hard as they can and get to where you're at. And just kind of talking about the college aspect of it, back when you're, thinking about, going to Cornell and stuff like that, was it the obvious choice, or, were you kind of struggling with that decision on going other places, or how did that look for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer. Really didn't have anything else that I thought was comparable. You know, because I do love wrestling and I do want to do this for a living, but I also want to set myself up for the best possible future, right?
Right.
So I need to go to a school where I can, gain those tools and, make those connections. And, Cornell being an Ivy League school, definitely has that connotation with it, as well as just being the outright best Ivy League school,
Right.
you know,
Right.
by a
Yeah.
large margin.
Yeah.
So it's the best smart wrestling school. It's the best combination of both you're going to get anywhere.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard people make comments, about you go to Cornell and it makes life just a heck of a lot easier, just in the aspect of you go find yourself a job after college, you start working, you're doing really well, and then all of a sudden things start going sideways. You don't like your boss, don't like where you're at, whatever. I've heard people say you make two phone calls and you've got a Fortune 500 job, lined up, ready to go because of the different brotherhood that you guys have out there, compared to a lot of places, and the different connections that you get, especially with being an Ivy League school like that. Which is good. I've always been told, and I've always believed, a lot of the times in life it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and how well you can use your mind, and your connections, and I know that's not always the best way to go about things, but it sure does help, that's for sure. So
No, I definitely see some truth in that, and the to just to touch on that on what you brought up, right? I think the specifically for the wrestling team, as Cornell as a whole, but the wrestling team, I feel like we have a different level of kind of brotherhood, right? I think we kind of really, and like I've seen other college programs, being on the national team, traveling around the country, going to different colleges for dual meets and stuff. I've gotten glimpses at what other colleges look like, and the level of closeness of brotherhood that we exempt here is crazy. I think that every single person on the team is friends with each other.
right.
There's no cliques. There's no like this group doesn't like these couple guys. Like everyone is on the same page. We are a brotherhood. We are a team, and that's just such a minute detail for some, but a crazy, thing. And I think it's probably a reason why we've had so much success in the previous years, and why I think we're on a good trajectory going forward.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think you guys are on a great trajectory, and I think that Cornell, it seems like a lot of what goes on up there with recruiting and things like that, it's all very straightforward. There's no games being played or anything like that. One of the best quotes I think Jordan Burroughs has ever said, is college recruiting is a dirty game. He tweeted that out a couple of years ago, and it just absolutely blew up. And I think that has a major, major statement and a major, major impact to a lot of people. Just because it is, I think to a lot of coaches and a lot of university and stuff like that, it's you're a decimal point, you're a number for, as much as we can get out of you, we're going to get out of you. And now that we get, kind of this new NIL era, I think that changes a lot.
Mm.
What's your opinion on it? You think it's going to be better overall or worse overall?
The thought is there for what they're trying to do, and I think it is the right thing, kind of to move towards. It's just the implementation of it is kind of rough. Everything that you put out for the first time, there's going to be some hiccups, right? And uh, so I think we will kind of move towards a place where NIL deals are like a little more regulated. There's a little more. There is. It is tough though to put like restrictions on an idea, right? It's my name, my likeness, my image, right? Um, so there are. It's a very kind of gray area. I think we do a really good job of kind of embodying the uh, true spirit of what NIL is kind of about. We're selling our own merchandise. We are, you know, promoting ourselves and our building our brands and stuff. And I think what we're doing at Cornell, between me and Yanni and Foca and some of the other guys is really what I think the NIL is supposed to look like. I think the issues with it is, I'm not pointing fingers or saying names, but you can throw a lot of money at a kid and get him to transfer, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Well, and with
that's
the
kind of
activation of the transfer pool too, that.
we gotta somehow limit that pay to play aspect of it.
Right. Right. Otherwise you're going to end up with schools that's got the biggest donors and the biggest checkbooks going to end up, being the top three teams every year.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm not saying it's got to be a fair field. It's not a fair field. Wrestling's not fair.
Right.
Not everyone's 100% fair chance to win, but um, it's just it's a slippery slope, right? Because then you see, you get this kid who's a freshman, who's the number one kid in the country, and you give him a full NIL deal, and you pay him 20K. Well, coach, what about me? I'm a NCAA champ. I'm a three-time All-American. You're not going to pay me. It's like,
Right.
all right, well, now we got to pay you too. And now the other guy who's, an All-American, he's like, oh, well, I'm an All-American. I don't have to make as much as him, but I deserve to get paid too.
Right.
So then you get all this, everyone wants money at that point. It's like, well, all right, well, it's gonna be tough, and you're gonna see a lot of transfers, but you're also gonna see, like, I don't know, some weird picks. Like you might see, like, you know some small school pick up a superstar just because they have a super rich donor who can afford it. So
Right.
it's something that we want to try to stay away from. I think
Right.
we, people are quick to forget. This is college. Like you're supposed to, like, go to class and get a degree at the end of the day. Like
Right.
you're not selling yourself out already. Like you gotta wait till you graduate to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and everybody's gonna have their own opinion. You get all these guys that think that they're gonna talk and do what they want, and that's fine. It's always gonna be that way. But it seems like 99% of people's opinions, they don't matter. They're not gonna make the change, or make what they think. That's not gonna go into regulation or anything like that. It's kind of you look at it and you just kind of have to go, well, it's kind of like that. I don't know if you ever heard it, but the Chinese farmer story. The Chinese farmer's at home one day and his horse runs off, and all the villagers says, "Oh man, that's terrible," and he says, "Maybe." And then the next day, a bunch of wild horses come back with his horse, and they come and say, "Oh, this is great." Well, maybe. His kid gets on one of the wild horses and breaks his leg. And they come and say, "Oh, that's terrible." Maybe. Next day, the conscription officers come to take him off to the war, and they pass him over because he's got a broken leg, and they say, "Oh, well, that's great. He didn't have to go to war." Well, maybe. Moral of the story, you never know. You never know what's going to be good, what's going to be bad. It's just kind of the way of life, and you just got to roll with the punches. So,
No, for
so
sure. And it's definitely still in its young stages. And, I feel like what they were doing, you know, is not sustainable. You can't just throw these big numbers around like that and be like, oh, we can do this every year forever.
right,
You know, you can't do that. Like,
right. Money's going to run out at some point.
like, this is wrestling, man. Like, there's some money for sure. There's more money than people think, but you can't do that forever. So I think give it a couple of years, it'll kind of even itself out, right? It'll
Right,
go like a correction curve.
right. Yeah. Well, and you kind of get people rolling in, that may not be doing it for the right reasons and stuff like that. Like I'm not going to talk bad about them. I think they're great wrestlers and whatnot, but I think a lot of, the Ferraris, I think a lot of their, whole deal is, hey, how much money can I get? How quickly? And, it doesn't really matter, when you've got lots and lots of court cases and different things like that, I think that really shows, where your heart lies, I guess, and it isn't with being the best wrestler you can be. It's how much money I can make and how good of a time I can have. But like I say, they're great wrestlers, and they could be great people, but just the optic of it, doesn't seem like that. So
Yeah, I mean, wrestling is also kind of a sport where you kind of, it's a very like not courageous sport, but it's a sport of humility, right? Where it's like we're not doing this because we want to be super rich. Like, like I'm
right,
not. If I did, I'd go try to play football or basketball or something with some reward. What you get from wrestling is like what you gained on the journey type deal. Like it's the process. It's the self development. It's the the pride in your own ability. It's you know how far can I go type deal. It's all about like these all you get out of wrestling are ideas, but there's a point where ideas are the most valuable thing that you could obtain, right? Um, so and it's just there's ways to look at the sport of wrestling that are just you know pretty deep and then pretty surface level, and it's just um, I love this sport. I love what it stands for, but that's just not that's not really what we do. We're not the UFC where we have shit talking and superstars, and people are trying to make it more of a production, and I don't mind that. I don't mind trying to get fans interested and put on a show a little bit, but it's tough to try to live that superstar lifestyle and be a
right.
wrestler. It's tough.
Right. Well, it's just kind of like we talked about, last week we had Jake Elkins from Ironclad here, and just talking to him last week about, there's not a it's not like the baseball, basketball, football where, when you guys get done, you're not going to go make millions and millions of dollars wrestling professionally because there is no, major league wrestling. There's no professional zone. And I think that's something that people could really look into doing, you know, but
I mean, there are just not in the U.S.
right.
Like there's a league in Germany, and they're not making millions, but you can get paid to wrestle for sure, but not really in the U.S. And
Right.
that's a big issue, right? Especially with the fact that we have folk style too. It's honestly the whole wrestling thing in the U.S. could definitely use a tune up,
Right.
but you know that's a whole nother
Whole nother
can.
ball game. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, we do a lot with youth wrestlers, and I think a lot of the guys that are watching, are youth guys and other coaches, so I was going to kind of talk to you and ask you what was your success look like, as a youth wrestler? And if you had to really talk to a handful of them and say, hey, you need to keep this in mind, what are those things going to be?
Uh, Someone tell a little story. Um, so I started wrestling uh, probably my fifth grade going into sixth grade. So I'm probably 10 or 11 at this point, right? And I've been around wrestling my whole life. My dad's been a wrestling coach. I go to the wrestling room because my dad has to watch me. But I've never wrestled. And so my dad sits me down and he's like, okay, you can't just sit in the corner or you can't just like, jump around and play over there. Like you have to start going to wrestling practice, to learn how to do it. And so he starts bringing me to wrestling practice and I start training. And keep in mind, the people at the gym have been practicing since they were like 4 years old, 3 or 4, So they've been wrestling close to 6 years now. And this is my first time stepping on the mat. And I'm getting my ass kicked every single day, every single day. And I hated it. It was terrible. Like, Dad, what the hell? You're just asking me to go get my ass kicked for an hour and a half every night. Why would I have fun doing that? I'm crying. I'm like, I don't want to do it. He's like trying to bribe me. He's like, we'll get Wendy's after. Like, I'm like, fine. Like, but yeah, I hated it so much. Hated the process. Hated what like all. Why am I gonna go get my ass beat? Um, Kept practicing, kept with it. I didn't really have a choice. What was I gonna do? My dad was my coach. Take it away from him, can't stop at this point. Um, and I remember days where I couldn't figure out how to sprawl. So we would stay at the gym, and I think for an hour or something, he just had me sprawl, and I couldn't do it for like 20 minutes. And then I kind of figured out how to do it, and then he had me repeat it for like an extra 30 minutes, just how to sprawl, like off a shot. I couldn't take my leg back as someone was grabbing my leg. Uh, and this continued for like a year of just gruesome stuff. I hated this. I'm crying to my mom, telling her I'm sick. I can't go. Can you tell dad? She's like, no, you tell dad. I'm like, fine, I'll just go to practice. Like, I can't do that. Um, and eventually it starts clicking with me. Things are starting to make sense. Not in any big way, just like, oh, this is how you hit a high crotch. This is how you hit a single leg, you know? And, you know, sixth grade going into seventh grade, I'm starting to do tournaments and stuff, get my ass beat, but it's okay because I'm kind of figuring it out. I'm having matches where I'm not getting pinned, I'm not getting tagged. Okay. Uh, Seventh grade going into eighth grade, now this is where things just started clicking, and I was like, oh, this is how you wrestle. You know, I go on to take third at Super 32, and then I made the state finals because in New York you can wrestle varsity. I ended up making the varsity state finals in eighth grade, right? And that was just exponential, right? And what I'm trying to say through the story, right, is it's not easy, right? You're not gonna like it all the time, right? And you may not even know why you're doing it, but I can tell you now, as a grown adult who's 23, that I'm so thankful for my father for making me go get my ass beat for an hour and a half every single day. You know, I think it's the most impactful thing that he could have done in my entire life. He was taught me how to wrestle. There's so many skills that I've learned from him on how to be a better person. There's so many, opportunities that opened up in my life because of it. So many friendships that I've made through wrestling. You know, Wrestling is my life now. It'll be my work. It is my craft. Um, and yeah, I'm just super thankful to have it in my life, even though it wasn't easy, even though I didn't want to do it. You know, it was a gift given to me from my father, and for that, I'm thankful and grateful to my father every single day.
Right. So persevere, the hardship and the training and all the suck of it, it ends up being one of the best things you can do. Whether you end up being a great wrestler or not, the life lessons that he's talking about, you're gonna be just a better person from doing it, And there's that, I'm not gonna say corny, but there's that old corny quote that Dan Gable says, after you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy, and that's true to a lot of people, So, as we kind of get ready to wrap up here, what about your future plans? You're going to wrestle freestyle this year, obviously, and then, are you going to stick around for a while? Or are you going to try to go big and start fighting and doing stuff like Bo Nichols doing, or what's your thoughts?
I can't imagine getting punched in the face. I'm not that tough. No, I got one more year of college, so I got one more season next year, and then I'm train freestyle professionally, train freestyle, and go for the 2028 Olympics. And then from that point, I guess I'll be 29 years old, so I'll have to take a pause and kind of evaluate my life, and if I want to go for another cycle, I'll wrestle till the 32 Olympics, and then I can't imagine I'll go past 33 years old. So
Hey,
I might,
33 is your prime, man. 33 is your prime.
man, So we'll see what the future holds. Definitely want to continue training, continue chasing my goal of being a world champ, of being an Olympic champion. So those are things that I need to train towards. And I think after I graduate, I'll be able to full push my effort towards that, and I'm excited, and I'm confident in the future.
Good, good. Yeah, no, I wondered if you would, come back for this next season. I figured you probably would, but I wasn't sure what kind of jump you were looking at making. What kind of mindset do you change your mindset a tiny bit going into next season? Feeling like you might have a little bit of a target on your back after winning, this last year, or is the mindset always the same? Never changes.
I think I definitely gained a little bit of confidence, just kind of in myself. Just I've gone to two NCAA tournaments previous, and obviously I didn't win those ones. So just the confidence that I can do it, right? It's not like I'm cursed or something. So I just have to go out there, and I think a lot of it had to do with going up to 33 this year, and I think that was good for me. I think I'm gonna do it again next year, and I think I'm gonna, hopefully try to repeat kind of the performances I had this year.
Right. Well, I think you definitely can. It was absolute lights out wrestling all weekend long. I was thoroughly impressed. And I mean, we watched you wrestle last year, and just seeing you, I'm going, man, this kid could be something just ridiculously special. And not that you already weren't, but I'm thinking like multiple time Olympic champion, just one of the greats. So anyways, Vito, we appreciate you coming on. We're going to wrap up. Thank you guys for listening. This is episode 3, and we'll stop it right here. Thanks, guys. Just be the evolution of the sport. I mean, every now and again, you get these coaches that roll through that you just want to go, gosh, just get with the time, guy. If your coach is teaching your 6-year-old a headlock before anything, there's a problem. Look, we're going to take the 1 or the 16. You decide. Welcome to the show.